The oral law of the Jews, the Mishnah, listen to this. It lists over 1,500 actions that constitute work on the Sabbath. Again, you saw the verses. They're using the same Bible that you have sitting in your lap. All God said was, you shall not do any work on the Sabbath. You would think most people can figure out what that means for themselves, right? I know when I'm working, I know when I'm not working. But the Pharisee said, no, you can't figure that out for yourself. We need to tell you. And so here's a list of 1,500 things that are forbidden on the Sabbath day. So much for it being a day of rest. Now I got to keep track of these 1,500 rules. In Matthew chapter 23, Jesus said of the Pharisees, they bind heavy burdens hard to bear and lay them on men's shoulders. Speaking of all these man-made rules and regulations they came up with and put them on the people, these things became a heavy burden for people. And people lost the original intent of God's command because of all these rules. People got all twisted up by all these rules. And by the way, Orthodox Jews and ultra-Orthodox Jews still observe these same Sabbath rules today. And they're still just as burdensome to keep and actually hinder people from just having a relationship with the Lord. I have a picture. I just want to show you one example that I think illustrates what I'm talking about. This is a sign at the Western Wall Plaza in Jerusalem. That's that wall that's at the base of the Temple Mount where Jews go to pray. It's one of the most holy sites to Jews. There are Jews praying at the Western Wall 24 hours a day. And these are the rules to enter into the Western Wall Plaza. Look at number 4. This system has been made suitable for use on Shabbat, that's Sabbath, and festivals by the Zomet Institute. Look what it says. The chief rabbis of Israel have ruled that walking through the metal detector system does not violate Shabbat or festivals. You know why it says that? Because according to their rules, you're not allowed to use electricity on the Sabbath day. Because using electricity, according to their interpretation, I'm not talking about Bible here, I'm talking about man-made rules. According to their interpretation, using electricity is the same as starting a fire or building a fire, and you're not allowed to build a fire. And so understand, here is a devout Jewish person who wants to go to the Western Wall, one of the most holy sites for them. It's as close as they can get to where the temple once stood, and they want to go there to pray, and they want to go there on the Sabbath day to pray and seek the Lord, but they've got to go through a metal detector first. And now because of all these rules, they're in knots. Can I pass through that metal detector? If I pass through that metal detector, I'm going to cause electricity to work, and I might violate the Sabbath rules. And so they needed a rabbi to give a ruling and say, no, you can pass through the metal detector and not break the rules. But praying to God is a good thing. But now because of these rules, I don't know if I can go down there. I don't know if I can go through this metal detector. And so you see how it's a hindrance to them. And so they have all these rules, 1,500 rules for the Sabbath day that they have to obey. Even things like they're told they're not to lift a burden heavier than a dried fig. And so, depending on your keychain, you can't carry your keys in your pocket or your wallet in your pocket. Or worse, for ultra-Orthodox moms, some ultra-Orthodox moms don't pick up their babies on the Sabbath day because it's a burden. And I'm not criticizing them. I'm just saying this is the burden that's heavy to bear that these rules put on people. At the same time, the Jews have created many kind of workarounds for these rules. For example, one of their rules for the Sabbath day says you cannot travel more than about 3,000 feet from your house on the Sabbath. That's a Sabbath day journey, about 3,000 feet. And so Jewish communities and cities, what they do is they place a thin cable around the perimeter of the entire city. And they say that now everything inside this cable is part of my house and part of my property. It's called an eruv in Hebrew. And they claim everything within that cable as part of their home, and that way they can freely travel throughout the whole city on the Sabbath day. You may not know it, but Baltimore City has one of these cables around it. Washington, D.C. has a cable around it that incorporates all of downtown Washington, D.C. So that now they're free to just travel within the city because all of this is part of my home. There is on Thursdays, the rabbis will travel around the city and check the cable to make sure it doesn't have any breaks in it. And there's a hotline you can call on Thursdays that'll just say the eruv is up, meaning it's still up, and you're free to travel on the Sabbath day. And Jewish people in the community donate money for the maintenance of this cable around the city. The cable that goes around Manhattan, get this, it costs $150,000 to $180,000 a year to maintain that cable. I don't know, I thought that was interesting, you know. But so they've got these little workaround things. So that, you know, well, I want to observe these rules, but I also want to live my life kind of thing. And so they create all of these workarounds.